as Angel stated, today's webinar, we're going to be looking at batches and best practices for batches in both SMSPro and in the new program that is introduced by Lock SMS as eSuite. So I'm going to be starting here in SMSPro and just go over some tips and tricks to using batches and building the batches inside of the SMS software. And then I'm going to go over to eSuite and show you some of the features that are available in eSuite as well. There is the same idea, the functionality that we're doing in SMSPro for batches in eSuite plus some additional. So up here on my screen, I have a pretty basic layout for batches in SMSPro. Very default layout that they give you if you're going into the batch maintenance that you can start off with and then add your own tables as necessary. What I usually recommend is that if you are utilizing batches and you're building the batches inside your own system, you may want to customize this layout so that way you have the tables that you would like to. If you're primarily doing sales, you want to have your future sales tables. If you are going to be doing primarily TPRs, temporary price reductions, you can add that table. All the tables for batches are going to be available underneath the batch drop-down menu. So if I click on up here, you can see I have my batch header, future price general. And then down here is my future TPR. So that would be if I was going to be working, like I just said, with the TPR, I can add that here as well. You can also move them around. Maybe you do a lot of cost batches. You get a lot of future costs. Your vendors are giving you a lot of discounts and you want to set those up ahead of time. Then you could come down here, you can do future cost. If you're getting any allowances or rebates from your costs, you can add those tables up here as well. And any additional batches that you think that you're going to primarily be using. If this is something that you do want to change around the layout for, we can also assist you in showing you how to save these layouts so that way you're not constantly having to go up and open up these tables. And you can fill up this whole screen with tables. You can rearrange them to however makes sense. It's actually up here under our preferences. You can memorize the screen preferences and we can help you get a name so that way you can easily access this every time you're using a batch and not have to constantly be going back. The default ones are the future cost and the future price. You can actually save your layout so that way you don't have to even have a unique one. That would make it nice and easy for you to find in the future. Just to show you, if you are going to be using one of those and you're saving it, this is going to be located under your drop down for view. You have your future costs right here and your future price. That's where you can access them. Or underneath your maintenance button, you would have your future batches right here, or it's also under item view or batch view. So you can access them in a few different ways to save them. Now going back to, like I said, kind of the default layout. If you are going to be creating a batch in SMS, you would want to open up these screens. And the first step that you would do is just come into the batch header. You would hit the plus button to go ahead and create a new batch and pick your batch. It is specific when you're making a batch. So if you are doing a sale batch or a TPR batch or a cost batch, you are limited to that table. So what that means is that if you're just going to be allowed to do sales and sales, you're just going to be allowed to do future cost and cost. So make sure that you're picking the right batch type when you first start making the batch. Once you come up, I'll just make a sales batch right here. You just need to give it a descriptor. And then you can set your dates down here, and you can be as specific or general as you would like. And down here, you would just set the dates that the batch is going to run. It will pick the next week based on your system settings for the batch by default, but you can of course change them. So if you need to change them, you can double click or type in the field. It'll pop open the calendar. You can click on the toggle detail view button right here. So if you wanted to just get a little bit of more information, a long description, anything like that, you can go ahead and do that. And then you want to start adding in your items to the batch. So you do that using your filter up top, and some easy ways to bring them in. Main code is going to be your UPC. That can be a little slow, especially if you're working in the back office. You have to type in each UPC individually. Of course, you could have a hand scanner. So you can group together items to bring them into the filter to add them all into the batch. So there is some built-in criteria. So if you have like a light code, if you've had grouped together your items by a light code, you're doing a batch on a vendor, the vendor's asking you to run a sale on their items, or subdepartment. We have category, family code, report code, all of that information right here, mix and match. So you can bring in the items that you would like to bring in to be able to add to the batch, and it will show up into the browser at the bottom. A good trick or tip for this, I should say, is you can also stack your criteria. Again, you can simply scan in and type E2PC in, but if you have a big group of items and you have them grouped together somehow, this will make it a lot easier for you. So you can come in and you can say, well, I need to bring everything in a certain subdepartment. So I want to do my subdepartment, and I can do my subdepartment for deli. And you can come over here and you can add more criteria. So you could do and, plus, and you can do additional criteria. So everything in my subdepartment 6, plus I can want to do everything in a certain category or certain vendor ID inside that subdepartment. So you can easily come in here and stack the criteria, and you can stack it using the and or ability to do that. I'm just going to leave this open with my subdepartment 6. So it's going to bring in, once I execute the filter, it's going to bring everything down here underneath the browser that meets that criteria. And now I need to add it to my sales batch. So over here, you would just go, it is a future sale. So I need to go to my future sale table, and I would just hit plus. And let me just hit cancel on that. And let me just do plus. I'm getting a mix and match code. Sorry about that. And you would just be what the new price is that you would like to do for the sale. And it'll bring in the start and the end date based off the criteria in the batch header. And then you can go to the next item and keep going to the next item. I do have it prompted on me that I can generate the price from the cost. If you do have that, you can utilize that using yes or no. That is an option that we can certainly turn on for you. But for this, we'll just keep going through, and you can start adding them all. You can scroll this down here with your mouse button if that's something easier for you to do, or you can also use, let me just scooch over, sorry about that. You can also use your keys if you're going up and down. Another feature that I just wanted to highlight over here that can help you. So if you're wanting to make sure that you're not overlapping items. So if you're not unsure if this item is already on sale, or if it's already in a batch that may be coming on sale, this opens by default on all the batch views. It's called batch all changes. And you can come over here to filter the item. So that way you can view if this item is on sale, or if it's not on sale, if it's already in a batch, a sale batch or TPR batch, if that's what you're doing. And you can come down and you can check your filter. So if it's got anything in a batch, you can look at future price, price general, sale, TPR. You can pick and choose which ones you would like to see over here. Click on OK, and then it will show up over here if it's in a batch at all that would be changing the price. You can see I have a few items that are belonging to a different price batch right here. So this is in my batch 5, and it's going to be changing the price right here. So I know that's already in a batch. That may stop me from wanting to put it on sale, or I can still put it on sale, of course, but just so that way I have that information readily available. If you don't want to see this and you just want to be seeing what's in your current batch, you can check mark it up here as well. So it'll only show if it's in the current batch or not. There is some specialty batches when you're using the future batches, just so I can highlight those. As I stated, when you are creating a new batch, you are limited to the table. So just so you can see here, looking at this batch right here, I cannot come down here because I picked future sales and create a future TPR. It's not going to allow me to do that. It's not the right batch type. So if you do need to cross for whatever reason, maybe you have some new items coming in, you have multiple changes you have to make on both the price table and on the POS table, whatever it may be, cost table, price table, and you don't want to be making 2 different batches. Down here near the bottom is an open batch. Open batch will allow you to make changes to multiple tables. So you're not limited to the sale, you're not limited to the POS table, you're not limited to the cost. So this is a great tool that's available if you're needing to do that. Like I said, for whatever reason, it could be new items you're bringing in, whatever reason it may be. The other specialty batch is the delete batch. And what the delete batch does, it allows you to group together items to delete all the items in one go. When you create a delete batch, it is a little unique. You do come in here, you do still want to give it a description. And what this does is that you want to pull all the items you want to delete into the browser. And once you have all the items you want to delete in the browser, because you have to add them to the batch, you have to come up and you use the future price table to add the item into the batch. Now, you're not actually going to change the price because at the end of this, you're going to delete them. But this is what's saying, I've added this item into my delete batch. So I want this item to be deleted. If you do a delete batch or any sort of batch, if you want to mass apply this to all of the items in the browser, you do also have that ability. Once you've added it in here, you can use this apply templates to all items. This will bring all the items into the batch. You can click on this, it's going to pop up this screen. You have to physically type in the word yes to add all the items in the browser. It's stopping to make sure that you really want to add all those items. As you can see in my warning says, this change will affect all 83 items in the browser. Type yes to confirm. Wants to make sure you're stopping. I do want to bring all 83 items into my browser. And then down here, if you've used this feature in item maintenance, you've always used apply only changes. We want to apply changes but create record if needed when we're doing this in a batch environment. The reason why we want to do that is because you're creating a new future price or a new, if it's a different type of batch, you're creating that new record for that item. So you want to use the apply only changes but create record if needed. So it creates the record to add it to the batch. Once you've gotten everything in your batch, then you can either wait to have this executed by date. So it'll execute automatically on this date. So on the 29th, again, going back to like the sales batch, I have it set to the 29th and the 1st. There's a scheduled task that will check for any batches. Or these all will exist when you create a batch in the execute in-store batch. So you're going to come into in-store, which is under your batch dropdown, you're going to execute in-store. And you can find your batch and manually execute it. You can bring it over to the right-hand side and click execute, and that way it applies immediately. Now, in a sale TPR situation, if you apply the batch, it'll apply it to the price table, but it won't activate the sale or TPR until the date hits. So you don't have to worry if you apply one of these earlies, it will just put it in the column and it will just show on the item so that way you can see it's upcoming. But it won't actually start the sale price until the date that it's supposed to. So that's switching back from SMSPro. I'm going to go into eSuite to show you the same idea behind this. So this is eSuite. I'm running this on the same lab that I'm running but I was just showing you on Pro. If you're going to be using batches in eSuite, the batches are going to be available on multiple modules. I'm using the manage module. And if you go into the item master right here, there is a selection right here, or underneath items, I'm sorry, right underneath master, there's the batches. And this is where you can build your batches in eSuite. So you can easily come in here and build your new batches. If you're looking at this, you can see that there is a new button right here. I'm going to do the drop down menu, and this should look extremely familiar to what we just saw. You do have the same abilities. You have the same breakdown. So if you're doing a sale batch, a TPR batch, a future cost batch, whatever batch it is that you're trying to build, you are going to be limited to that type up here. So if you can't put a TPR in a sale batch, or you can't do a cost change on a sale batch. Down here, I also still have the open batch and the delete batch when I'm creating new ones. If you want to look at an existing batch and edit that in eSuite, you can use the batches or the all. The batches is a search that you can search for certain batches, and the all will bring up all the batches that are currently in your in-store batches that you can edit on. So I'm going to go ahead and go into my all and look at the batches. So this is the one that I just made for the delete batch. That's the TPR. That's a TPR one that I was building earlier. And you can see some older batches that I have sitting in the system. For this, I'm going to show you a little bit more functionality. So if I'm going to build a new batch, I'm going to say I'm going to build a new TPR just to change it from the new sale. I'm going to call this my October TPR. So you just need to give it a descriptor, just like you did in SMSPro. And then down here, I have my dates. And there's a little bit more information. Now, this was available under the more details, but it is showing now by default. So you can see it's showing me what the type of batch is because I picked TPR. and the action it will add replace. I can go ahead and I can save this. And then over here, it's showing me that I'm currently in the TPR batch. So I can go ahead and say, all right, so I want to add items. I've created the batch, and now I want to go ahead and I want to add items to my batch. So I'm going to come into my edit header, and I'm going to click on these 3 lines. This 3 lines will allow me to add items to the batch. And now I need to find a way to group together my items to bring them in the batch. And this is where eSuite has a little bit more flexibility than SMSPro to bring in the items to the batch. So I have all the search criteria similar to how I was looking at this before with the filter, and I can stack the filter. It's called criteria. So I can search by a specific UPC code. I can pull in items by description, vendor ID, category, subdepartment. You just saw that in the other one. I also have a more criteria button that gives me a little bit more: price level, department code, family code, report code, classification, vendor code. Again, all of these are fairly similar to what I just showed you. So the additional functionality comes into play is if you have a list outside of the SMS system that you want to bring in, that they can do a copy paste. So down here under menu, they can have the ability that you can copy and paste a list of items to bring it into a batch. So I can click on copy and paste, and then I need to have a list of items. So I have a list of items saved on my desktop. So let me just go ahead and bring that in right here. So I was sent this, my vendor wants me to bring this in, or whoever said I want to put all these items on sale. So you can simply select the items, and you're going to want to go ahead and just copy them in. Now the one part is it's a little confusing, is that when it says paste data here, a lot of people think that you're going to paste the data down in this empty screen. You're actually going to go ahead and paste the data where it says paste data here, and you're going to use your Control-V key. Right-clicking and copying does not work in this field, so you do have to do Control-V to bring in the information. And let me just go ahead and full screen this again, so that way it's not cutting off at the bottom. Sorry about that. And so now I just need to tell the system what I want to bring into the batch. It's splitting it up for me because I pulled it in from Excel into nice columns. So at the top, you just need to say what the columns are. I did bring in the header, so I have them from my Excel sheet to make it easier for me. But if you click on the down arrow and you want to say what the field is. So the associated field, this first one is my UPC. So that way the system knows this is my UPC number. So I go ahead and click on that. Now this is a TPR batch, so I didn't need my descriptor. I don't need my price level, but I'm going to go ahead and pull in my TPR. Now I called it my regular price on the name, but the name doesn't matter. So I can come in here and I said, this is my TPR price. This is what I want to put this item on sale for. So I click on TPR price. So that way this knows that that's the TPR price, and then my TPR quantity. So associated field is the TPR quantity. If you are in a multi-store environment, so a host, and you want to target, you can also define your target. You don't have to. If you're in a singular store environment, you can just bring it in with what I've just dictated. But in a multi-store environment, you may want to have a target. So that would be the very last essential field that you need to be able to go ahead and import in a copy paste into eSuite for a batch. I'm just going to go ahead and click on that. I do have the dates, but it should pull the dates from the batch that I'm importing it into, the header that I set up. So you just click on the import button, and then the items are now pulled into the batch, and there's my future TPR prices I just brought in. And I can easily also go back if I want to. You can add additional items. You can go back to the wizard, so it keeps it open in eSuite right here. Nothing really closes in eSuite. It always gives you the ability to go back and easily not close anything. So I have those items in my batch. Now, if I want to add additional items outside of those copy paste features, I can bring them in with any other criteria. Once you have everything done, once you're done with your batch, again, it will go off of a scheduled task. So you don't have to worry about executing it manually if you don't want to. There's a scheduled task that will check for any in-store batches. But the deploy batch button is down here if that's something you wanted to manually deploy the batch. You just have to come in here and you would find your batch number. So I believe I called it, I can't remember if it's my November batch or October batch. I think it's my October TPR. And then I can confirm it and it will apply this batch. Again, it will apply it to the item's price table, but it won't activate the price until the date actually comes to pass. There is a little bit more additional functionality in eSuite over here that just allows you to search for batches a little bit easier. That's what all of these are for. So if you're searching for a cost batch, this will bring up all the cost batches in the system that you can go in and you can edit, or you can add a new cost batch from here. Same with the POS information or a delete batch. So that way you can easily come in and do this. Now, one thing I do want to go over real quickly, just because I showed you how to do this in SMSPro, the delete batch in eSuite does make it a little bit easier to add items to the delete batch. And what I mean by that is I just showed you, you have to add a future price, which is an odd concept that you have to add a future price to a delete batch. In eSuite, it does, you can just pull in the items that you would like into a batch. I'm just going to go ahead and use the same batch that I was looking at before. And we'll execute it just so you can see the difference in how it shows up. So when you're pulling in items into a delete batch in eSuite, it's actually not adding a future price. You actually have a little icon over here that says batch to be deleted. So pulling in all the items, the ones that I want to delete, I just have to click on here to delete them. Once you turn them red, it adds them to the batch and it will be deleted after that. And then when you execute the batch, it will be deleted. So it's a little bit more easy to be able to add them in here, as opposed to trying to remember that you have to add a future price to a delete batch, which just can be a little bit confusing as you're not changing the price. Angel, that's really what I wanted to go over for today. Angel, did we have any questions?
Yes, Jen, we did have a few questions. So the first question is, are there any reports to show what batches were executed for a certain date?
Currently in SMSPro, no. You can come into the batches and you can look at execute old batches, and this will show you all the old batches. These do purge out after a few months. That will show you when they were executed. So it's not so much a report format. You can come in here and view and see when they were you can come in and see when they were executed. There is the same ability to do that in eSuite as well. You can come in and see the old batches, but not, and you can run a batch history report to get that down here. This will give it to you more of a batch format, I should say. So this will, not a batch, I apologize, I meant a report format. Sorry, I got batches in my head now, but this would give you a more report format that you would be looking for in eSuite. This would give you that information.
Okay, so our next question is, and I think this is regarding when you were doing the copy and paste function, does the import data for a batch in eSuite need to be formatted the way you showed with specific columns?
It does not need to be formatted exactly. You can copy and paste a list of items from like Notepad or something like that, but you do need to have the columns to separate them specifically, especially for a batch that I was showing for a sale batch or a TPR batch, because you need that price that you want to bring in. For if you were doing a point of sale or POS batch or a main item batch, you could just have a list of UPCs and paste them in there and format it to, or not format it, but associate it with the UPC number, and it will bring them in and you can make the changes. But for sales and TPRs and prices, it does need the price as well. I tend to find it easier with Excel, but you could just use a tab delimited file if you have one of those as well, just so you have that separation for the columns so you can associate the fields.
Our next question is, I currently only use SMSPro. How do I get access to eSuite?
So we can install eSuite. It actually would be depending on what version of SMS you're on, and we can just go in there and we activate the module, and set it up, it would set it, I'm sorry, we'd activate the module and install eSuite. It's an additional option, and then we would show you how to access it. But it's 350 and 36 both have eSuite available. Anything lower than that does not. So it would just be calling their salesperson and saying that you would like to get eSuite, and then we would just get that module added and get that activated and set up for you.
And then I can reach out to you after this webinar as well to discuss with you. Jen, I think that may have been our last question. Thank you so much. Next month, we'll be hosting our Lunch and Learn on Thursday, October 31st. And we'll be going over coupons best practices. If you have any questions at all, please email us at sales@stcr.com. And thank you for joining today, and I hope everyone has a great day.